For those who have tuned into my video before, you know me, I'm not a negative person. I like to accentuate the positive. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. Nothing too toxic. On occasion, I know we rile each other up. But generally, I'm pretty level-headed. And you might be tuning in because of the title of this video. And you might be thinking, clickbait. Maybe it is. Will the USMNT ever win the World Cup? Well, it's an interesting question. And again, this is the men. And I was inspired by the women to make this video, and I'll get to that here shortly because I'll give you unfortunately, a very long list as to why it will not happen. But back when we hosted our first World Cup, people would ask, will it do? And I think Pele said, yeah, one day. Bruce Arena would later say, there's no doubt in my lifetime, the USA will win the World Cup. And we're like, yeah, we made the semis in 1930. We were this close to making the semis in 2002. That was a crazy World Cup, by the way. Have we ever even seen anything like it? Turkey making the semis, South Korea making the semis. We have not come close to that. We felt it was like that in Qatar where Morocco made it and Croatia got back, but no, that's not like Turkey and South Korea. And the USA in the quarters. We've waited for another World Cup like that. It hasn't come really that close. But we always said that, and it was just assumed that one day we'll win the World Cup. And you know, I'm an old dog at this, and as time goes by, it seems more absurd to think that the USA can win a World Cup. A lot of things will have to change, as you will find out here shortly, for that to be possible. But right now, the answer to that question, can the USMNT win a World Cup? The only way you would say yes is if you think a bit of science fiction here, and they hit all this, because they're not going to hit all these things, because in many ways we are who we are. We haven't really changed over the years. So the answer is no. I would love to see it. I feel pretty resolute that we will not see it, at least while I'm alive. And I plan on being here a long time. So today on the Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast. Just posted a brand new show there. Danny Higginbotham of Apple TV and NBC Sports joins us. We talk about the incredible life of Sir Bobby Charlton. We'll talk about MLS Cup playoffs. This week in MLS, Eli Lesser joins me. We'll continue to have some predictions about MLS Cup, the Champions League, with a look at how the Americans are doing as well. The Soccer OG podcast, where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. Check out all the videos here on YouTube. And sometimes I mentioned we're going to have a series of shows here about the state of U.S. soccer. It begins with this one, on whether they can win a World Cup. Where do we sit, huh? Where do we sit with regards to our targets? I think a semifinal, like we can replace, will we ever win a World Cup? Can we make a semifinal? And we've come close, like in 2002. We did make it in 1930. That doesn't count. We're dealing with a modern time. I'm going to push that aside. Round of 16 this time around. We made the round of 16, which certainly puts you 2 wins away from making a semifinal. So you can see some light at the end of the tunnel. I also want to say, you know, I'm not being critical here of the U.S. because this is a conversation that they're not having in places where they possibly should, like Japan, maybe in Africa, the continent of Africa. Morocco came close. Yeah, Morocco's in a different place, too. It's almost a European team, quite frankly. But I'm not taking anything away from them, what they were able to accomplish. Could it be Korea? Or, I mean, even countries like Uruguay, Colombia, they're not having this competition right now. Or maybe they are. I don't think they can win it. And that said, the United States and their development are still in diapers. They're still in diapers as a nation. We're so far behind to where this sport has become part of the narrative that we discuss here in sports, even though that is not 100% at the same level of other countries. This is not our passion, which is one of the issues that we will talk about here. I'm going to get right into it, but I am laying some disclaimers, some information as to why it's not really the US's fault. They're in no position to really claim that they can win a World Cup. I think it's going to get better, and we're hosting a World Cup in 2026, but how many chips do we put in that basket? And how that World Cup is becoming more and more challenging day by day. I'll explain that. Let's get into it. Lesson number 1, or number 1 on my list, number 1 on this lengthy list, was a lesson from the U.S. women's national team. They were the best. They had a physical and a professional edge over the rest of the world. Made a World Cup final, won a World Cup, 3 finals, 2 cups. And heading into this year of 2023, it would appear that they were on their way again. And then the realization the world had caught up. The foreign player was getting better. There was more money in the women's game. Players were developing a technical edge, and they were matching that professional edge. They were matching that physical edge, and the gap was gone. Very quickly. It wasn't quickly. It took some time. And that is a result of so many things that's happening around the world. And that's not changing. And I feel the women who have a better shot of winning another World Cup will be hard-pressed to do that anytime soon. Because we saw in over a month that gap disappear. And what it meant is that we don't have those technical edges, those coaching edges, whatever it is, we are lacking. Whatever, when the playing field is level, we are not the best. And the playing field is going to be level or perhaps tilted in the direction of the rest of the world moving forward. That was a wake-up call. We're superior in so many ways. And once those things went, like we work harder as Americans, we are better athletes on the women's side. When that was gone, then the edge was gone. So that was the big alarm bell that I rang. And then I started looking into this a little further. It got feeling quite silly that we would even claim that we could win a World Cup. I've never wanted to be wrong more in my life, but I think we just got to take a step back because many of these topics, the detractors of American soccer are going to agree with me. They are in place. Some of these things you've already heard, and it's just part of the challenges we have to face. And they're all getting better. Every day, a lot of this stuff, not all of it, but a lot of this stuff is getting better. But once we saw when the edge was gone, we were just another country. And the women are still higher up the pecking order than the men, right? Number 2, soccer is the number 1 sport in the world. It is not here in the United States. And just grabbing my notes, there's more tradition going into sports in the United States. We've always talked, and I think Bill Burr had a joke about that, about once the kids in the inner city started playing, and this will play into another topic. There's a little bit of crossover that'll be game, set, and match ahead of the U.S. But they're not. And they're playing American sports because they're organized from a very early age moving forward. Baseball, basketball, football, even hockey. That's all embedded in our culture. And if you're a very good athlete, you're not going to move into those sports for that very reason. You'd be crazy to. We always hear about soccer closing the gap. It's going to be the number 3 sport, the number 2 sport. People say it's past hockey. I haven't seen it. People say it's catching up to baseball. It is not. It is not. Baseball remains steadfast in its support, its TV appeal, its turnout at the stadiums. It is still very good. And we can't even sell out a stadium when our national team plays. And I think there's more interest there. That's probably more of an issue with the federation and getting tickets. But that's all in play. There's not that passion. Soccer is down the pecking order. It's a slow burn. They're moving up, but maybe they catch hockey. I just don't see them catching the other 3. I believe they could at one point. I just don't. Barring a cataclysmic issue with football, with maybe there's a head trauma issue and people just stop playing cold turkey, it's not going to happen. Number 3 on the list is coaching, development, top to bottom. We are way behind. This is part of the reason. Part of this reason is because we're so new to the sport and we're still playing some catch up. But there's no investment really with regards to creating good coaching from the bottom up. It's getting better. But think about what's going on in Europe and South America. The coaching is out of the womb. The scouting, the development, he's really good. They do it. It's check it, a check it, a check. And there's no gaps with regards to that. The coaching prevents anyone from falling through the cracks, which happens with us all the time. And there are some other issues with like when we become professional, which is also improved by a lot, but it just doesn't compare. And it gets back to that case of the women's game. The women's game, the girls that were playing for Netherlands and Germany and France and England, some of the South American countries, they are getting top-notch coaching. The women's leagues are getting better than we have in the United States. And that is going to shift the balance of power across the Atlantic. So coaching is a big issue here, and we're lacking in that. And I don't see that getting a whole lot better. We're developing good young coaches. There's not enough money in it. Money drives a big part of it. Money leads to interest. It's all kind of interconnected. This is kind of like number 2, but number 4, passion. We've said this so many times. When the World Cup rolls around, you're dealing with countries where it is life and death on winning it. I know our guys would go out there and put everything on the line to win it. And no one is going to die for a World Cup. It is an expression, maybe a bad one on my part. But there are kids that were brought up in absolute poverty. We don't have any of that. We still have pay to play. There's not that inner city element. There is the recreational part of it is still not there. It's hard to get on fields, etc., etc. But you look at almost every kid on the Brazilian national team, most of the kids on the Argentine national team, the French national team, they come from impoverished backgrounds. Soccer was their only way out. Soccer was their only way out to make a better living and support their family. If they didn't make it professionally, who knows what they would have to do. It's that big of a decision in life. Many of the American kids have things to fall back on. We live a world of privilege here, certainly from our soccer players, because they're not coming from those places. And you don't want kids to come from an impoverished background. But coming from that provides that passion that we aren't able to match. I'm going to tell you this about the World Cup. And even like countries like Germany and Italy, these are kids that generally did not come from a great background, middle class to below. Since 1970, I think that is 14 World Cups since 1970, all due respect to the old era. 6 teams have won it. More surprisingly, 8 teams have made a final. None of them are from Africa, none of them are Asia, none of them are from CONCACAF. All of them are European, Argentina and Brazil. Like I said, Uruguay, and incredible, but they have their limitations. I don't see them winning a World Cup unless something goes crazy. They have a better shot than we do. And then Colombia and Ecuador. But that's it. 1970, 8 teams have made a final. You can list them off: Brazil, Argentina, France, Germany/West Germany, Italy. Croatia's the one outlier, Spain and the Netherlands. Croatia's the one smaller country, but they feed into so many other areas, like their neighbors to Italy. And it's a small country with a passion and kids who come up. It's pretty remarkable, and we don't have it. Just crossing this off the list. Just to think the idea of the United States making that list out of the blue, it seems very far-fetched, to me anyway. Number 5 on the list, competition. The world is splintered. This is more of a modern problem, right? We reside in CONCACAF, which really handicaps us. And in the last few years, with Nations League and many other competitions, we've been kind of left to our own devices. And we have seen that when the United States wants to make a schedule to fill out these windows. And in the 2026 World Cup, where it all comes down to, there's no qualifying. So you're going to be hard-pressed to get games, and it's even more hard-pressed. We saw the Germans complain about having to come to the United States to play a game. They're like, we don't need to do this. And you know what? They don't. They get everything they need in UEFA. Ghana looked completely uninterested, and we beat them soundly. I don't think they're in any way to line up again and go, that was not a fun experience. Ghana may have to come back. Germany does not. UEFA has their own Nations League, and then they will keep feeding that. We feel like we're getting closer with South America, which would be a slam dunk if we could combine forces with CONMEBOL. But there is so much resistance to that. And again, we've seen some signs of hope where they have the Copa America here, but is it going to happen on a regular basis? I don't know if South America are willing to make that jump. I don't know if CONCACAF are willing to make that jump, because they lose their authority, right? And that's a lot of money. But competition is a big issue, more so now than ever. So these are new issues that are making it even more difficult for the United States to win a World Cup. And we're looking for 2026. If they don't have the right preparation heading into that World Cup that they are going to host, then it's not going to happen. You need good games. You need to be tested. Even though they're playing in the United States, you need to be tested away to prepare you. I don't know if we're going to get that. So we add that to the list. Number 6 is another new problem, and it's World Cup expansion. World Cup expansion is going to make it harder for the U.S. because back when it was 32 teams, if you made the knockouts, 2 wins get you in the semis. 3 wins makes the final. That seems realistic. In a 48-team World Cup where 32 teams make the knockouts, you have to win 5 games. The deeper countries will have a better shot of advancing, and that does not describe the United States. The countries I listed earlier that have won a World Cup and a few others beyond them have the depth and just the quality, along with the quantity, to go 5 games, let alone the group stages. And by the way, World Cup expansion really could not have come at a worse time for the U.S. because what usually happens in a World Cup is because you're the host, you get a favorable group. You have a group, they want you to advance. And generally countries do, especially of the size and scope of the United States. With 48 teams, top 2 teams and possibly a 3rd place team will advance. There's no way in heck that the U.S. aren't going through. But if there's a 32-team World Cup, you win your group, your round of 16 game is pretty favorable. You're playing a 2nd place team. You're in the quarterfinals all of a sudden. Well, that's out. So winning a group has not got all the positives that it once did. And more games, to me, doesn't benefit the U.S. No one's crying right now yet. I know this is pretty dire. We're almost done. I have a couple more to go. The domestic league, and I'm affiliated with Major League Soccer, still developing. It's done a lot of good. But I feel ideally, if you're a top league, you want your best players to play here. And I know in Argentina, Brazil, that's not the case. Obviously in Croatia, but Croatia, they're close by. The European countries, it's a European Union, so it almost feels like you're playing at home. Brazil and Argentina are the 2 outliers that have done well when many of their players are playing abroad. Still, the U.S. needs a better quality of league, I think, to really propel them, and the money will come in there. They're getting there. I think this will develop where it will help the U.S. get closer to their goals. But it's not there yet. And again, Major League Soccer is 27, 28 years old. What can you do? We also have a problem here. When I talk about Brazil and Argentina, if you're in Brazil, your favorite league is the Brazilian league. You watch the Premier League and the Serie A and the Champions League. If you're in Argentina, your favorite league and your favorite team are in Argentina. That's priority 1, even though the quality's not great. And you watch the other leagues. In the United States, some people's favorite league is the Premier League, the Serie A, La Liga, Liga MX. I mean, the Mexican league really puts a stake in through U.S. development. It really does. It's positive, but it's also very challenging. While that can't be really quantified, it is still a challenge to overcome because the league needs to be taken seriously across the board. The perception has to be good, and all Americans have to be behind it, in my estimation. Maybe I'm a reach. Number 8, just investment in general. The investment is going up, but it pales in comparison, even to some South American countries, to what they invest in from the bottom to the top for national teams, for rights fees. In Europe, it's insane what they pay. It's a niche sport here still. And whether every tier we're doing well, we still trail. So just investment in general. I don't want to beat this to death, but deep down in my heart, I feel the United States will win a World Cup one day. It's not going to happen in 2026. I don't think it's going to happen by 2050. But things can change, and I'm optimistic. And I'm happy to be wrong on this one. But with the lists of challenges we have to overcome, with a couple more things on the list, it's not looking good. But stay upright. The Soccer OG. Like and subscribe. We'll join you again with this series very soon.